Amanda, you're going to cue. Good evening and welcome to Dead Air Live. Tonight's show will feature 3 local poets, Joanne Diaz, Ruth Lepson, and Jack Powers, accompanied by Jeremy Woodruff. First up is Joanne Diaz. She is a graduate of Tufts University and has received several prizes for her poetry, including the Academy of American Poets College Award, the Morton Cohen Creative Writing Award, and a grant from the Somerville Arts Council. She currently works as an associate editor at Bedford Books in Boston. She also plans to enroll in New York University's graduate creative writing program in the fall. Joanne Diaz.
The first poem that I will read is called My Father. When my father and I go shopping, he confesses things about his childhood. While we look for nails in the hardware store, my father tells about a gray time when he was 8 years old and his father was dying. My grandfather was a man with strong smells: salty fish, dried sweat, stale gin. He wasn't told he was being chewed up by the musty fish factory and swallowed by his 5 thin children huddling in one bed. One day, my grandfather came spinning in with his reddish face and tired eyes. It was always the same, but for my father, that day was as vivid as the sting and blood of a child's first cut. My father was called into the kitchen and ordered by his mother to bang many brown nails into the bedroom door in order to keep my grandfather from getting out. My grandmother told her son, my father, to yell Spanish curse words at the man behind the battered door. My father obeyed, not understanding the words he recited to his father, a strange, drunken immigrant. My father didn't need to tell me how loud the cracking of the hammer was. I could hear it. This next poem is also about my father. It's titled Layoff, as in lay off from work. And it begins with a line from Stephen Berg. Layoff. Isn't that what our first taste of death is, the invasion of another's pain? Today, the invasion of another's pain. Swift cut, no bruise, all smooth. Dad was laid off like a broken racehorse or a greyhound with lice, rickets. No bugs on this man, near bald since marriage, ears like bay leaves on each side. 1 donut every morning, tuna at 12, Pepsi at 3, then home to wife, color TV, the Daily Record. No God, just lawnmower, saber saw, and drill. This is the first taste of death. It tastes yellow, like when you swallow sun with no water or lick the bridge's cold edge in fall. It's like that, only all the time. This next poem is called Charm for Unkindness, and one thing you need to know is I refer to weaver birds, which are actual birds that construct elaborate nests of straw and grass in various geometrical shapes. Charm for unkindness. When the one you love grows mean as a tree, seek refuge in the garden beyond your porch steps. There, the lace of brush and vines will sparkle blue as fire. Above you, weaver birds will dwell in their hollowed mandolins, summer hats, conch shells. Rest on rook quills and hoof scum. Watch the sky's form change from burnt wood to soda glass, its pearl ash crescent and stars bright as finger charms. In the moon's resting place, be everywhere again. Let its warmth stretch quiet as spiders on your skin, nails, hair. As eyelashes leave their silky trail of sleep on your face, do not lose courage. The wind-worn night will bring you to me, thousands of miles away, where I will manage unfinished details. Piles of your clothes, jamming closet doors open, the sticky soup bowl you left under your bed, the glow of your laughter on the patio in summer. And I'm going to read just one more, having to do with my father. And this one comes in 4 parts. And it's called November. 1. All day long I tried to make it work, this poem for your parents. I fill it with lies, firewood, green earth, striped curtains, home. I wonder who you are, where you came from, why there's no photo of your dead parents. 2. You say you loved your mother, and I believe you. But in my nightmares, she's a scary ghost. Black facial hair, mean wrinkles, a square mouth for curses. She beats water rats to death in the cellar, then fries pancakes made of milk and eggs, yellow like parchment on the stove. 3. I must imagine the picture of your young life, your haircut as a boy, straight and clean like grease paint. Evenings, you'd scramble from the house, clouds hanging purple and heavy in the sky, your voice electric. Record, get your record here. You'd stand near the tunnel's boom as it opened like a gray blossom. You counted every pock, every crack in the pavement. Once, as the tenements squeezed night out of the alleys like sweet juice, you watched your own father being pulled into the police wagon, fish innards and horse dung stuck to his shoes. As the policeman dragged him up, you watched his pants fall down. You pretended he was a stranger, orphaned, you ran away. 4. You prepare for winter like a dog thickening his coat. In November, you change the storm windows, poison black ants behind the stove, clear the spider webs from under the porch, your raw fingers bitten by the teeth of fall as the yellow haze of the frozen sun dozes in the brush beyond our back steps. No wonder why you always clean things up. This next poem is called Crush. At work, a parade marches by. I lick gummed envelopes, drink sour coffee, eat sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, push paper clips into my thumb's flesh. Then I remember you, finding, reading, knowing. What in this world moves you? What branch do you bend? What wind do you bear that forces gravity to leave me in this new, strange place? For years I have existed, old and quiet as cobwebs, resigned to full-time grief that never peels away. How can I change my life when you hover this close, pressed and bound, slight as a book of rules or precedents. Under earth laws and legal words lies this grave truth, that you are infinite, that you know of no time or compulsion that will sway you from your quiet, complicated path. I miss you already. Next one is called The Accident. Your will to live is not as strong as mine. You raised your voice to prove your point, then veered into the median strip to see the stoplight swing like a pail full of water. It was like that clear moment between sleeping and waking when God glistens like a whisper. The windshield lit up like a lovely halo, then its light relaxed into dim streaks. And the dashboard, close up on my cheek, its vent holes hard on my skin, its protective scratch-proof coating brown on my nose. I didn't think of my mother, writing in very tiny letters a list of every thank you note she sent, or my father washing the dishes as if the scalding water could clean everything, or of you, my driver beside me, leaning toward risk like a waiter with a heavy tray. The air settled like dropped petals and reminded me of the strangest things, of the leaves last fall, how their veins froze beneath my feet like a bridge for my crossing, or of summer, how the clouds beyond my patio moved like fish under ice, then disappeared into rigid invisibility, or of my coffee cups smelling like asparagus and gravy, or of my retainer that I left on the kitchen sink, or of my fish tugging at orange food, at life in the tank on my living room table. Next poem is called Aunt Millie, and one thing that you should know about this poem, I use a word, speculare. In ancient Rome, windows were glazed with fragments of glass and shells and colored stones, and that's what I referred to in the poem. Aunt Millie. The day she died, Uncle Don went for a run as fast and smooth as a wet seal, stepping over styrofoam coffee cups and discarded cigarettes in the street. When he opened the front door, he saw her standing at the sink, her mouth a small O, a rose window in church parted open for air. He watched as her face forgot every scratch her skin had known, every pulled muscle, brittle bone, her hands still wet with soapy dishwater. He caught her in his arms, her robe lilting like flowers and teeth glittering, filled like speculare with glazed shells and stones. Outside, the quiet birds clapped their wings. At the funeral, no one knew her age. He told everyone, 76. Don, 11 years younger, hunched in his shadow, never having felt so poor. He stared at her chalk-white hair, pushed, brushed, sprayed, glamorous with a sheen like Barbara Stanwyck's. Up close, it smelled quiet as snow against her square earrings. The mortician buried her with her eyeglasses from 1958. Her cheek rested against the pink funeral pillow they took 2 minutes after everyone left. Her hands are my hands. I can feel them. They pull at my knuckles and thumbs at night, like laced gloves close on my cheek. The next poem I'd like to read is a sonnet, unrhymed, and it's called Clothes, like the clothes you wear. Clothes. At night, I remember your clothes, and how, after they fall off you, Lithe, long, they hide orphaned under the bed, beside the bookcase, each piece a souvenir of what it clung to. I have hidden in, tried on, and grown accustomed to them. They tell secrets about you, that you have dandruff, that you wear socks for days at a time, that mornings you spill coffee on the jeans you never scrub. The warmth of your olive skin lives in them, on t-shirts, sweaters, shoes, your plastic watch. I yearn for your muted cottons and wools, the way they hold your bow-legged, long-armed etchings and leanings with snaps, patches, and pins. I'd like to read 2 more poems, both having a lot to do with fire and explosions. They're my most recent poems. The first one is called Flight. Returning from her trip to the west, the woman rides on the subway, considers its sickly mice and concrete between black metal rungs. Wondering when it will outdo itself and create again, she rubs the stone in her pocket, violet-eyed, speckled with glowing lines of white, gray. On the Park Street platform, she sees the briefcase, vinyl, brown, alone. Pulled down with the weight of her backpack, she imagines an explosion bellowing through the hollows of this station. Fire and iron burst through the caged understructure. Blades of concrete slice through skin. Smoke in its heated rage removes all hope or courage. The tapered eaves of this historical place collapse in despair. Throat gummed with panic, she climbs the mud-brown steps, races out to the street for safety, listens for rooted words as she runs to home, to comfort, to the grief she was born with and will keep with her in this life. And this last one is called Burning. When city life no longer works as medicine for grief, drive to your childhood home for burning season. With spiked tools and mulch-stained gloves, reach for every pink root and raw weed. Unearth whole villages, wrestle with an underworld of white grubs, dried dung, cellophane wrappers coiled and creased. Saplings will burn scratches into your arms, and red ants will burrow deeper than you can dig, but remember, the only cure is to bury what you bring. Your muscles taut, your shirt stiff with loam sweat, slice the shears blades fast before clouds trip into night. Yield to the earth, its untiring grip, the way it heats loneliness, as if glazed with colored poison in a kiln. Pile heaps into the rusty wheelbarrow, pour it all into the fire. Guard the nearby woodpile from white petals of ash, furious as birds wafting up and away. While you are preoccupied, the fire will lunge forward, dangerous, hungrier than you are, and ecstatic. In an instant, this bowl of flames will sprout orange-pink, and your dreams will mean nothing. Hot ribbon flares will race up tree trunks, suffocate pines ripe with needles, flash hot through your nerve endings and singe your dark hair. Douse these fires, tend to them, wait on them, refuse to leave them, as you have left everything else in your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Our next poet is Ruth Lepson. Ruth Lepson is poet in residence at the New England Conservatory of Music and teaches in the English department at Northeastern University. Her book of poems is called Dreaming in Color and is published by Alice James Books. She has organized poetry readings for Oxfam America and co-edited the poetry page of the feminist magazine Sojourner. She and a co-editor have put together an anthology of poems for Sojourner, which was recently accepted for publication by the University of Illinois Press. She has given readings on NPR's All Things Considered at La Mama Galleria in New York and elsewhere, most recently the Grolier Bookshop Spring Poetry Fest. And without further ado, Ruth Lepson.
I'm glad to be introduced by another poet. Swampscott is a town on the north shore of Massachusetts. I have a few poems about Swampscott. Ocean at Bay. Water like mercury, blue ice, glint white, brown, rolls, fizzes over bricks the car tracks made in the gray sand. Rocks like the necks of turtles, masts bobbing like pogo sticks. A Dalmatian chases pigeons and gives up. Sky's feathers tickle me. I go into white wooden stores anytime I want. I love this town. Across the bay, the jagged Boston skyline. Like me, definitely there, but so far away, it doesn't matter. Swampscott Hour. The seagulls spread out in a line by the edge of the water, like a string of Christmas lights unraveling. Ducks, dark as the darkest rocks, form a circle in the sea. On the drive home, a huge sun, its reflection on telephone wires. Golden white Christmas lights, too. Something turning into something new. Cool wind, something old. Blackbirds fly, black stars in a white sky. Swampscott in a warm December. The ocean's a huge brain. Light thoughts, gray thoughts, trillions arriving, veering off, all the truth. I look up from Buckshee by Ford Maddox Ford, there running out of the water a decade earlier, my golden retriever. One stripe of sun crosses the bay, stripe of a skunk, even that thought a pleasurable one. The reason I'm here, the pleasure of space, like a pancake spreading across a pan, the sea sizzles at its edge. Breezes. Spiders shuttle in the winds, warm ones and cool. The oaks across the street seem serious against the young sky. A dotted gold butterfly flits among sunflowers, flirt among colors unwinding in the breeze. In the garden, red, orange, and pink startle one another. I'm going to try reading a few without my glasses because the light is shining on them in an odd way. This is called They Were. They were gliding down the river, I remember. He leaned toward the turquoise water, would not tell her what he wanted. She tried hard to read the paper. I remember she was tired, couldn't read the Sunday paper, couldn't smile or reach his hand. Worried he would tip the boat a little. He would tip it without warning. Only she fell in, remember? Freezing water, creatures under. Caught in seaweed, I remember. She was grateful when he saved her. She was shaking. He was better, I remember. This is a prose poem, which means it's written in paragraphs rather than stanzas, and it's called For the Dead after an Adrienne Rich poem of the same title. Coming back from vacation, I passed a cemetery with a sign that read, "Pray for us." I had thought that if anything, they were praying for us. Now the black, hollow notes of Shostakovich, September, and the oval leaves of the locust, matter of fact, push me to work. Maybe in purgatory, a woman waits for us to lift the shadow that falls on her, the shadow we can still move in this changeable place. Maybe all we can do for the dead is give up our poses, since after life there is no more silence over a meadow. There are no sparrows, whose explosion into the sky sends a ripple through our chilled and patient bodies. This is a new one. It's my favorite at the moment. Other people I've showed it to find it their least favorite. I tend to really like this minimalist kind of poem that I write once in a while, and see for yourself. It's called There. You can get here from there. What you can't do is stay there, is be there without. Now to a longer poem in 3 parts, called parts. 1. Where? Where are you going, Claudia? I've been going there too. I thought you were going somewhere else. 2. The gray street. Summer, the season in which everything seems here. A wet night in August keeps her up. Her husband sleeps well, having learned in a ripped childhood to read and sleep. She looks at the room. The cat's pink ball is gray in the dark. Tomorrow afternoon, scores of pigeons will glide by, close to the gray street. The next season, here soon, a break with this flat world, but the weight keeps her awake on wet nights. 3. New. This part is new. Your mind must be turning. Who could have guessed it? You were a circle before, a warm atheist. You knew what you said, and you said it. Now you say new words, painfully. Words like anger, spirituality. It makes you feel taller, this intellect. It is something you once had no use for. Your apartment is old wood and white. Yet, unexpectedly, you love a cat. You write with hard edges. That picture of your family's fading. You're thinner. 4. Sorrows of Snow. As though she had taken a long subway ride and finally gotten off at a silent station. Divorce. She walks in new rooms, and her letters are addressed to me. I go to sleep. Sleep, a strange word, dark and thin. Everything I know is sleep. Around her gold heart, black. Around her white room, white. I brought a political poem. It's called Imagining the Imprisonment of Ms. Lu Shulian. I'm happy to say that after all of this, she moved to Boston, got a graduate degree in human rights, moved back to Taiwan, ran for vice president, and is hoping to run for president of Taiwan at some point. And you'll see what a change the political situation has undergone hearing this. I call it Imagining the Imprisonment of Lu Shulian because I thought that it was really arrogant to try to imagine what a political prisoner was suffering, but I also thought it was important to try to imagine it. Sometimes when I overhear people talking in restaurants with absorption and great seriousness about baseball or expanding their business, I think of how we limit ourselves. A trick of reading in the near dark, denying the darkness beyond the lamp or the room. I didn't want to imagine it. I did want to imagine it. Woman or man, one of the few times when that makes no difference. Vulnerable as cows, we are all the world then. But if the person being tortured is a woman, I know the curves of a woman. I don't want to imagine them hurt, but I can. What I will not imagine are the rooms, the unchanging months. Quote, Ms. Lu Shulian was arrested on December 10, Human Rights Day, in Kaohsiung, Taiwan, after a human rights rally that ended in rioting. She received a master's degree from Harvard. She was one of 2 feminist writers convicted. Her publications include New Feminism, The Past and Future of Taiwan, and the Amendment for Legalizing Abortion. Reportedly, she must read books assigned by the prison authorities and write lengthy, favorable reviews of them. She has been forbidden to use the words peace and human rights. Just so, Muriel Rukeyser insisted, no distinction between the political and the personal. Quote, he sees the sharp fear pass verdict upon her, pitching and frothing toward the mechanical white walls. To some, love must be unreal as sunshine in rooms where there's no day, wind, summer. I imagine that some still find the stream of love in the body, feel it flowing to the prisoner in the next cell, if there is a next cell. Some die from what was done to them, some are not allowed to die. We have been more savage than not. To be a liberal is often to forget that, and is to write without pressure, believing in language. Lu Shulian's captors do. For her, we write peace and human rights, what we are willing to do. Another poem dedicated to somebody. This is a Bulgarian poet by the name of Georgi Belev. It's called For Georgi Belev. 1. As your words crackled, fell off, the roses made layered shadows on the black floor. Shadow wing of your arm, magic wand shadow of the microphone, rectangle of the lectern between. To the right of you, the sun and moon shadow of a round table under the lights. And on the table, the stand of carafes and of water glasses, upside down like diamond hourglasses. Backdrop of a dream of mountains. In the corners of the floor, white smudges. You wore a white shirt with a small collar, pale jeans, and the plainest of black shoes. The little books from which you read had understated covers the color of sand. Like mine, your skin is pale, your hair dark. When I went into the street, there were people I'm used to who seem unlike me, and the street lights orange and lemon. Those summer nights when I won't go inside, I just keep walking. Traffic lights like planets, the crickets, wind. 2. Driving along the river, I see reflections, bronze, silver, and palest green, like a disco or some intricate weaving, like zippers, zigzags through the water, everything fluid, metallic melt. And this is a poem written after a painting by Philip Guston. It's called Profile of a Potato Head. Here's a cup I use as a pencil holder. Cigarette butts like bricks of old cake fill the plate. The one I'm smoking feels like a block of wood, smoldering. I lie on my back on a plank, wrapped in swaddling clothes, mummified. You can see the mammoth white of one eye. Dreaming that I was going to die, I woke up before I found out what happened. No one's dropped in for a week. He's painted my hair a coral. Everything's got coral stuck on it. My head's hard. Everything in my room is hard. Even my shoes are stiff, lined up. The nails show out the bottoms. I'm sore, I'm so stiff. My heart's chipped like an Egyptian bust or a mug. And 2 more. This one's called Fool's Gold, which you know looks like gold, but is not. Dazzle at the bottom of the river, pieces of light. Bands of light behind those clouds. You were moving farther away, delicately smashing everything in sight. Immobilizing afterglow. Pieces of shimmer, glints of white light. Fool's gold I traded everything for. I thought I'd bring this poem for Claudia Hyman, who introduced me because she wrote a poem about Elizabeth Bishop and reads her a lot, knows a lot about her. So for those who are not familiar with Elizabeth Bishop, I apologize, especially because the poem is called Reading Elizabeth Bishop's The Moose, And what I've done in this poem is take some of the words from that poem and rearrange them to make a kind of commentary on that poem, but more than that, really a portrait of Elizabeth Bishop. Her words sweet peas, whitewashed fences, bumblebees. Her words river, tablecloth, please. Swimming dark seas. A woman climbs in amicably. Words are enter, woods and wool, splintery. Passengers lie back, auditory. In the creakings and the noises, voices. Back in the bus somewhere, recognizable. Talking uninterruptedly, eternity. Who got pensioned? Things cleared up, finally. The year, remarried, drink, he. He took, yes, she went, bad, thee. Yes, sharp breath, acceptance, tea. It, death, life, featherbed, bee. Now, it's all right now, see. Jolt, light, bus, night, she. Thanks.
Thank you, Ruth. Last we have Jack Powers. Jack Powers founded Stone Soup Poets 26 years ago, and the Stone Soup Poets have presented a public reading for 1,363 consecutive weeks. They also have a weekly 2-hour show on Cambridge Cable Access Television for the past 11 years. And Jack Powers tonight has a special guest, Jeremy Woodruff, who will be a master's student in music at Brandeis University in the fall. Jack Powers and Jeremy Woodruff.
Perhaps at a time like this, it would be best to drift off from the dark shore, alone, under the clouded moon, in an oarless boat, drifting away from what was or couldn't be, lying back on the rough boat bottom, looking up at the black sky, peeking stars, misted moon, the smell of fresh ocean growing stronger as you ride the soft current through the bay, out past blinking lighthouse, foghorns sounding, buoy bells clanging, the wind lifting light spray, the boat bobbing and rocking in the larger waves, drifting past all human sounds into the mystery and peace of the sea. Drifting in absolute abandonment, like a tiny creature in a walnut shell on the broad rolling sea, under the mighty sky. Feeling the tingle under your back of the billion vibrations of life beneath you. Feeling the movement of giant seaweed shifting in the current, hundreds, thousands of feet below, the massive hum of life cycle. Deep organ tones sounding through the boat, drowning thought and memory. Drifting at last in the absolute knowledge of life and death. Alone in the black of ocean, with the slap of waves, the whisper of spray, the glimpse of stars and moon. drifting toward that which is timeless. And you open your arms. You smile, embracing the sky. You glow, and the clouds dissipate slowly, uncover the deep galaxies, the furthest stars shining. The ocean and the sky is one with the drifting, and like a snake skin, that withered rag of you, that petty thing outgrown, and your spirit expands, luminescent, covers all, becomes all. The tiniest particles and energies of you flung instantly, past light speed, to the deepest corners of the universe, past the limits which don't exist, past calendar and birth and death, to the pulsing core and extremities of all. And it is one. It is one. In the drifting, the abandonment. The tiny boat found charred and empty in the sea somewhere. Dance. Link together, wind round vine, ivy, twirl climb, leg lock, arm twine, dancy leaf growth, by pond side, frong side, cricket dust, gnarled rackham root, hanging branch twilight, quiet morning glories, green leaves spreading, climbing ever, tentative shoots exploring, thin green tongues in air, in ever upward ballet, this light leaf dance toward sun. Moment. Not simply the angle of the wing as it deflects, genuflects. A power there, olden, golden, and glistening, a tremble with this speechlessness. Something momentous has happened, as in the eye blink of the doe, when the fawn first stands. Stone Soup has done some 80 publications over the years. One of my favorite things we tried, it was kind of a failure. We tried to do a tabloid. We actually did the first, I think, tabloid that was exclusively, every word on the page was a poem. And it was called the Stone Soup Poetry Gazette. And there's a poem in here I'd like to do. It was dedicated to Tommy Flanders, and it's relevant politically today. So it's called An Old Woman in Belfast. Brutal it is, and enduring past belief. They cut our language out of our throats, starve children to feed horses, and the trouble's still licking at us like hellfire. While there's grown men weeping over Galway Bay and Boston bars, spending the rest of their emotion on sporting teams, screaming at refs and umps over alleged wrongs, while their blood that bore them simmers in the cauldron of Derry, the gutters red and the graveyards full on both sides, and the Brits in between, their rifles pointed one direction, and their justice one military scale waited for centuries with the hot lead of prejudice. Brutal it is and enduring, past belief that the sons and daughters of those forced to leave us have forgotten us. Most now cosmetic Irish, convenient March 17th Irish, safe in the colonies while the boots grind us down. God's mercy on those who could help their own and don't. Three-part shot. Ultimately, where the thought begins, just after I blink morning. Reassemblement of self, a blank page to work on. So there you were, or had been, amidst the tangle of night, and nothing to hold to now but that memory of you, who would disappear into oblivion without this conscious exercise. Ah, then the words occurred. Without you. I'm being honest. Ultimately, there is nothing but that moment, that experience, yours, ours, to run with forever. Two. Crystal stemware used once, then hurled champagne bubbles trailing into the ashes of cavernous hearth. After all of this, why the dreadfulness again and again of the obvious, that you wake alone in a bed of strangers, all groping for the doorway to God. Shift. It's not the measure, the length, not calibration, certainly not inflation, not hardened clay, nor pewter, certainly not steel, nor the texture intriguing, nor the pursed tiny lips, anxious to spit goo. Not the pendulous sac, nor the invisible acorns inside, not the urgency, not the heaving pumping, not the desperate lunging for coming, not even the spine-tingle crescendo to bluey. Not the soft, slack aftermath, not the shuddering shrivel, not the nuts now hard and tiny evicted from scrotum, not the last twittering twingleness of bliss that makes me do this again and again. It's the possibility that the next time it might last forever. Another shift. I have two sons. They were very young when I wrote this. This boy pisses and misses. He's bad or careless or both. Another stays in the bowl, not in the seat. He's neat, has a true future, already into damage control before knowing true sin. But if I were to bet on one, it would be the explorer of limits. The lines are always drawn too fine. Hope. The sun runs out of a hole in the bottom of the sky, drops apple ripe, slips into a Chinaman's back pocket or the rucksack of a rock-bearded hiker in the desolate stretches of Afghanistan. And there it crystallizes, turns to amber, a glowing pendant, worn with exciting carelessness by a dark gypsy girl dancing barefoot at the bazaar, a magic radiance at her throat as she spins and spins. Always, even in darkest times, the light returns. Had the pleasure of presenting a young man who was in a rock band that I met downstairs at the Hard Rock Cafe. And this is the generation that I wrote this particular piece for. And it's called Manifesto for the 90s. It was written in 1990. So I'll have to do another one, I guess, soon, if I'm around. The secret is finally out. We shall not linger in the past. All statues must fall, good and bad. Jesus and Hitler alike tossed into dustbin. We shall create our own world without reference. Down with Shakespeare and his like. There is no backward or forward, only this now. This now, which must be fed with the raw meat of our inexperience. Every generation to reinvent the wheel, or choose not to. The greatest duty being escape, to be free of the domination of what was or happened or was considered important enough to remember. Forget everything. Then begin to live without a backward glance, without the Alexandrian library, without syntax, allowing your thoughts to unravel into the pure genesis of the unfound, letting the anarchistic energy of each simple sound reach, touch, recoil, and join like microscopic life in a pond. You cannot live while the past exists as dominant force. Surely we must all know by now that all formulae are experiential, that books are police, blocking singular possibility, that reruns are becoming our real lives willfully, that prognostication and procrastination are the coward's insurance. Toss the dice. 6-sided, 12 imaginary, who cares? Better to go naked into that furnace of this instant, and forced to respond, create the next moment of nothing but one's intrinsic will, undefiled by recollection of any sort. Live to create, create to survive, and burn all traces of your passage. Thus, humankind will arrive at our noblest calling, vulnerable, uninformed, but truly powerful, creative creatures, if we but truly dare. Anyway, that was taken very seriously, obviously. Not what I would have wished. I shall have been proud to be what I have always been, an uncommon peasant, never to forget the oneness with the all of an unrefined clan, gathered for no discernible purpose, but filled with the sense in the gut of the soul that everything matters, may in some extraordinary way be appraised, examined for the weight of its contribution to the total organism. St. Francis told us that, and I believe. I'd like to do a poem by Allen Ginsberg at this time called Song from Howl. And I'd just like to do it primarily because the Beat Generation has a reputation of not being necessarily lyric poets, but this is John Wieners and Allen and others have reached rather significance. So for Allen Ginsberg, God bless you where you are. The weight of the world is love. Under the burden of solitude, under the burden of dissatisfaction, the weight we carry is love. Who can deny? In dreams, it touches the body. In thought, constructs a miracle. In imagination, anguishes until born inhuman. Looks out of the heart, burning with purity. For the burden of life is love, but we carry this weight wearily, and so must rest in the arms of love at last, must rest in the arms of love. No rest without love, no sleep without dreams of love. Be mad or chill, obsessed with angels or machines, the final wish is love. Cannot be bitter, cannot deny, cannot withhold if denied. The weight is too heavy, must give, for no return is thought is given in solitude, in all the excellence of its success. The warm bodies shine together in the darkness. The hand moves to the center of the flesh. Skin trembles in happiness, and soul comes joyful to the eye. Yes, yes, that's what I wanted. I always wanted. I always wanted to return to the body where I was born. I'd like to dedicate the next poem to Julie Stone for her birthday. And it's called The Awakening. The Awakening. The awakening comes in dimlet sense, in curl of self, within a mother's inner sea. Pushed against confined horizon, amid relentless pulse of heart gong blood rhythm, abruptly strung one glare day to air, where fright eclipses sun and there is left fear crawl to pendulous comfort of breast, and mother bulk warm smell the tiny hands of miracle perfect nails unclench, grasping to hold, till balance be restored to open, then explore, toes, belly, face, crotch, and delicious such discovery, intimate in blanketed dark bedding, but fled focus to somewhere else, something else supposed to, a sense to happen, and one day something from coil of self-union to that other, mirror other, examined in secret like strange sculpture, to be sure to know that too and there, just that way for the other too, and flesh streak floods, still something unware, something unhappened until unpeeled like fruit in twilight garden, the different other, of different something, of fitting in certain other ways, of separateness, holding back for balance a tentative foot on high wire, strung thin between cliffs, and perhaps fear would swallow possibility like a giant snake, a fawn, and shrivel recoil, but perhaps one day, in the daring to, perhaps confuse persistence or accident, and in the slide lip, tooth-edge other, all of pressed squirm and delirium stretched each to what could there, in that some split second of atom sunburst flash bright, the instant thought in both bodies uncovered, shining, shared, this light fleeting past bone-flesh togetherness at once. We have just created life between us. Hung there for a second, and the long fall falling from that perfect point, finally and fully, used completely, and that beautifully, that simply. And as the mind cannot accept memory detail in terrible tragedy, so the truth of this beauty hides terrifyingly, while we stumble our many ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack and Jeremy. I'd like to make one announcement, and that is that last week's Boston Globe announced that WFNX Radio 101.7 FM will be airing a broadcast of the late Allen Ginsberg's Howl in its entirety on Friday, July 18th from 6 to 7 p.m. So news director Henry Santoro will host the show, and it'll also feature commentary by Robert Pinsky, Peter Wolf, Gail Mazur, Harvey Silverglate, Lloyd Schwartz, Elsa Dorfman, and Mindich, among others. And I'd also like to thank everyone for coming tonight to tonight's live studio audience and presentation of the three local poets, Joanne Diaz, Ruth Lepson, Jack Powers, accompanied by Jeremy Woodruff. And just also like to announce that future shows, Dead Air Live shows, will be on August 12th. We have Winter Boy, which is an alternative folk group. And then also on Tuesday, August 26th, we'll have the Barry Mackerel Show, a part fiction, part nonfiction comedy talk show. So thank you all again very much for coming tonight. And that's Dead Air Live. Thanks.